Welcome, everyone. I am so incredibly excited you're joining us today. Look, if you've ever felt completely drained after a family gathering, or totally overwhelmed by constant work emails late at night, or if you've just found yourself saying yes to things you really desperately wanted to say no to, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're demystifying the art of setting boundaries. We are going to learn how to reclaim our time, our energy, and honestly, our sanity. And we'll be drawing on the incredibly practical insights from Nedra Glover Tawwab's fantastic book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. My goal with this explainer is to take all that anxiety you might feel about speaking up for yourself and replace it with total confidence. Okay, let's dive straight into our boundary setter's journey today. We're going to cover what healthy boundaries actually are, how to overcome the guilt, the exact mechanics of saying no, what boundaries look like in action, and finally, how to handle the inevitable pushback. Section 1. What are healthy boundaries? The rules of engagement. So before we can set a boundary, we have to actually know what one is, right? It's this buzzword we hear all the time, but honestly, it's so often misunderstood. Simply put, a boundary is the rules and limits that define how others can treat you and how you'll behave toward them. They create safety, clarity, and mutual respect. And I really want to emphasize something absolutely crucial right out of the gate here. Boundaries are about managing your capacity and your energy. They are absolutely not about punishing other people. They aren't weapons. Think of them more like your personal operating manual. And boundaries go way beyond just your personal physical space. Obviously, yes, we have physical boundaries, like who can touch us and how close they can stand. But we also have emotional and intellectual boundaries that protect our feelings and our thoughts. We've got digital boundaries, like how accessible are you on your screens, material boundaries covering our stuff and our money, and of course, time boundaries, how you allow your schedule to be used. Basically, a violation in any of these areas is exactly what leaves you feeling so drained at the end of the day. Now, to really understand healthy boundaries, we kind of need to contrast them with the unhealthy extremes. Over on one end, we have porous boundaries. This looks like people-pleasing, oversharing, or just chronic apologizing. It's mere acquiescence masquerading as kindness. Then, at the total opposite end, we have rigid boundaries. Think emotional cutoff, isolation, basically pushing people away so nobody can ever hurt you. Healthy boundaries? They sit right in that sweet spot in the middle. It's the stark difference between true kindness and just giving in because you don't want to cause a fuss. Section 2. Overcoming the guilt, internal resistance. Look, I know that just thinking about setting boundaries feels genuinely scary. For a lot of us, it causes actual physical resistance, and I want to validate that for you right now. It's scary because of internalized rules we picked up in childhood, plus all those cultural messages we've absorbed over a lifetime about what it means to be a quote-unquote good person. And this brings us to the biggest fear, the question that stops so many people cold. Does setting boundaries mean I'm selfish or unloving? Well, the answer is a resounding no. Setting a boundary or saying no to a request does not mean a relationship has to end, and it certainly doesn't mean you don't love the other person. Actually, scratch that. Honesty preserves the relationship because it prevents that silent resentment from just destroying it from the inside out. A massive hurdle here is what Tawwab calls superhero syndrome. This is the totally false belief that you must say yes to absolutely everything and everyone in order to feel worthy. It's a complete trap. Shame and guilt act as massive boundary blockers here. We literally convince ourselves that if we just sacrifice a little bit more, we'll be valued. But you know what happens? All we do is burn ourselves out. Section 3. The mechanics of saying no. Your action plan. So, realizing you need boundaries is one thing. But knowing the actual mechanics of implementing them, that's another thing entirely. Setting a boundary is a learned skill. It's not some innate talent you're either born with or you aren't. It actually follows a highly predictable sequence. Step 1 is clarity, knowing exactly what your limit is. Step 2 is concise delivery, saying it simply without dancing around the issue. And step 3, which is definitely the hardest part, is consistent enforcement, holding the line when someone inevitably tests it. Now, when it comes to that concise delivery, you really need to understand the difference between an explanation and an excuse. An explanation is calm. It sounds something like, I won't be able to make it this weekend. I need some time to rest. See? It's a short, neutral refusal. An excuse, on the other hand, is frantic. It sounds more like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'd love to come, but my car is acting up and I have to do all this laundry. But maybe if I finish early, I can drop by for 10 minutes. Do you hear the difference there? Over-apologizing and making these conditional promises you can't keep, that just invites people to negotiate your boundary. To help you avoid that frantic excuse trap, I'm giving you these amazing pocket scripts. First, I can't take that on right now. Simple, right? Next, what do you need from me specifically? This one is great for scope creep. Then we have, let me check my schedule and get back to you. That is the absolute perfect delayed response to buy yourself time so you don't just default to a people-pleasing yes. And finally, the brilliant I can't but I can framing. I can't take that on, but I can help by doing X. I highly, highly encourage you to practice these out loud in the mirror so they feel completely natural.
Section 4, boundaries in action, life domains.
Okay, let's take those scripts and apply them to the messy reality of our everyday lives. As you'll see, different domains have totally unique traps, even though the mechanics of the solution remain exactly the same. In the family domain, the trap is often guilt tripping. Your tool? Practicing a fallback consequence if they cross the line. In romance, the trap is giving in just to avoid a fight. The tool here is to frame your boundary positively, like, I need this so I can show up as my best self for us. At work, the big trap is scope creep. The tool is blocking non-negotiable focus time on your calendar and treating it literally like a meeting with the CEO. And with friends, when you're dealing with repeated late cancellations, run an energy cost checklist before you say yes to the next plan. It's the same boundary muscles, just exercised in different ways.
Section 5, handling inevitable pushback, staying the course.
Now, I need to warn you right now, when you change the rules of engagement, people are going to react. They're used to the old you, the one without boundaries. So that pushback, it's completely normal. When you set a limit, people might try to use guilt. They might get angry, they might plead with you, or they might get super passive-aggressive. So the absolute crucial point is this. Pushback does not mean your boundary is wrong. Let me repeat that. Pushback does not mean you made a mistake. It just means the boundary is working. Do not backslide into old habits just to avoid temporary conflict. You've got to maintain your limit with calm consistency.
Of course, sometimes a boundary will be severely crossed, and that's when you'll need a boundary repair plan. Step 1 is stating exactly what you need for repair. Step 2 is defining clear consequences if that repair fails. Notice the phrasing here, folks. It's about what you need and what you will do. That's the difference between protecting yourself and policing others. Remember, boundaries are for repair, not for revenge. You really can't control what they do, but you can always control what you will tolerate.
Now, if all of this still feels a little bit overwhelming, I want you to try this micro practice. Start with the smallest, least risky boundary you can think of today. Maybe it's just putting your phone away during dinner. Then keep a boundary log, literally just an ongoing note on your phone to track your wins. Escalate to those harder boundaries, like telling your boss no, only once you've built up your daily self-care and boundary habits. It's all about building your confidence through repetition. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful thought from the author herself. Boundaries are not walls. They are the rules of engagement that let you participate in relationships without losing yourself. Isn't that just beautiful? You aren't locking people out. You're teaching them how to love and respect the real you. So here's my question for you. What is the one boundary you're going to set today to stop losing yourself? Think about it, grab those pocket scripts, and start your boundary journey. Thank you so much for learning with me today on The Explainer.